This is delightful. I'm so glad we came here. Feel those vibrations at Camp Video Games. Howdy, campers. Welcome back to Camp Video Games. This is Junior Counselor Sean, joined by Junior Counselor Josh. This fellow right here.
Hello from Junior Counselor Josh. If you're picking up rocks in the woods on your hikes, be careful. You don't know when you're going to run into a big old talus. It's going to come out and whoop your butt.
Have we even really talked about taluses in this series yet? I don't know if we have.
Not extensively.
Also, don't stack rock. If you go to a creek and you find all these nice looking rocks, don't stack them because you're likely to just eventually be responsible for the death of a chipmunk or something when they'll collapse onto the poor little guy.
Yeah, either that or you're disrupting, some ancient spiritual ritual of some kind. Just don't disturb nature. It's where it is on purpose.
Ooh,
anyway,
I like that. Here at Camp Video Games, we like to talk about video games and all of their various adaptations to different mediums. And in this first season, as I hope you've become aware of at this point, we are talking about The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, alongside the cartoon series. And we're deep as heck here in the Breath of the Wild discussion. We're talking about the Master Sword today.
I've never been more Zelda brained in my life than I am at this point.
Yeah, and let's just keep that brain rolling throughout the rest of our lives, man. I want Zelda content forever.
It's difficult because now I have to compartmentalize it with the fact that Final Fantasy 16 came out a week ago as of this recording. So taking out my Final Fantasy brain, putting back in my Zelda brain, and I'm ready to keep going, and talk about what Master Sword, what else?
We got several different topics of conversation to approach, but at this point in the story, Link has now reclaimed all 4 divine beasts. Val Rudania being the most recent one over in Death Mountain, that fiery salamander robot boy. So now we got 4 laser pointers aimed directly at Hyrule Castle.
Gonna blot out Ganon's eye and then get him while he's distracted, itching the laser beams out.
Man, we grew up at the time of the commercial availability of laser pointers really hitting the market, and for a few years, you could not go to a movie theater without just seeing laser pointers covering, Jim Carrey's face or whatever was on the screen.
I would prank and be pranked, I feel like, in high school by pointing laser pointers in people's houses and or them pointing them in my house. And it's so funny because now, oh my God, how old are we? 20 years later? Now you'd be like, oh, fuck, duck and cover.
Yeah. Sniper attack.
Just because everyone in this country is insane.
I got 3 guns on me right now.
I got 5.
Oh, shit, dude. Well, Link doesn't have a gun. He's got a Master Sword. Even though he might use it like a gun in the cartoon, he's got a hack and slash tool device aimed for stabbing. Although, do we ever really see does he really stab in any of his attack things? I know he stabs with the spear, but I know he slashes.
So you learn some stab. Ocarina of Time, I think, is maybe the first time you get a real downward stab into a body, and then
also you'll stab if you have your shield equipped. If you have got your shield up, and then you press forward and attack, and he'll do a jab.
Yeah. And then in Twilight Princess, the hero of time, who's this creepy skeleton who teaches you
the shade.
Yeah, all your badass moves. You learn some serious stabs from that guy. That's a vindictive little fella.
he's got a lot to be bitter
Every
about.
other Link since has been a lot less vindictive in his stabbing motion.
So I'm not gonna trick myself into getting all of the Zelda timeline wrong, but this particular iteration of Link, the skeleton from Twilight Princess, this guy had his childhood taken away from him and then he got forced back into his childhood after having a body that was like post-pubescent. He's like then like put back into the body of like a 10-year-old.
Right.
So I don't know, man. So he's got a right to be a little bit angry, maybe a little edgy after all the hormonal shifts his little brain's gone through.
Yeah, that guy had a rough life, but
So now that we've defeated Fireblight Ganon over at Vobradania, so what happens? Daruk, the fallen champion, big old Goron bad boy, good boy. He appears as a ghost. Yunobo, he sees Daruk's ghost, and he gets. You know what's even better than Daruk's protection? Daruk's validation. Like he gets the big old like that'll do, brother.
Right.
And like it just warms your heart. Link goes back to the Goron village. We're talking about the game. Bluto, that's the chieftain of the Goron folks. He hints that he may have actually fibbed about his back pain.
Does he?
Yeah.
That son of a gun.
Yeah, too much.
I told you.
Too much junkie business, man. All this, it really just like I never made that connection until you brought it up.
Right. As people living on the borders of Appalachia suggesting that the hills people have issues with painkillers is a little offensive to me.
And he only drinks Mountain Dew.
That good old Mountain Dew.
So, okay, the threat to the Goron village is now, it's been made safe. Valrudania is not going to interfere with their ore mining operations anymore, so life can resume back to its normal pace for the Goron folks.
Back to eating those good rocks.
Yeah, and so Bluto, after saying thanks, brother, he tells Link, he's like, you've got to head west to the Lost Woods. Like you're not you without the Master Sword. Like no one's gonna give a who you are until you get the sword. And on top of that, he also gifts Link with the Boulder Breaker, which is a powerful sledgehammer that this is an interesting little thing. Bluto describes this sledgehammer as being sharp, and it doesn't look like a device that would have an actual blade on it. It's got. Oh, do you have it right there on the video?
Oh Lord, my boy still has it.
So if you're
Although
watching,
I'm already in the Lost Woods, so there's
if
nothing
you're watching
really
along
useful
with
to use it
our if you're watching along with our video component, it looks like it's just a big old like sledgehammer, but the middle body of it is an actual. It's like a kind of like a very. It's like a Buster Sword. It's like Cloud's Buster Sword.
It rules. Or the Hard Edge.
Ooh, good pull, man.
I think is specific, I forget. There's also a butterfly one. I don't remember exactly.
Oh, man.
I'm usually pretty up on my Final Fantasy VII lore, but
but it's funny because it actually is a blade. It's not just a hammer. So that was interesting to me. Just think about like it's like a blunt tipped hammer with a double edged axe body. So okay, we need to get the Master Sword. Since this is not my first time playing, I know that in order to pull the Master Sword from its pedestal, Link needs at least 13 hearts. If you've been keeping up at home, I've been prioritizing stamina instead of hearts when I am cashing in my spirit orbs. And so my boy Link only has 9 hearts at this point.
oops.
Which means I have to hunt down about 16 shrines.
Yeah. So we got to talk shrines for a while before we get to the sword.
We're gonna do a little shrine hunt, and so I also saw this as an opportunity to go to some of the areas that are really interesting that definitely have like a shrine attached to them. That I wasn't sure where we would be able to address these in our like in our discussion.
Yeah. Well, I'll just I think we've said this in other episodes, but I do want to like just reiterate real quick the this is like a pro and con of the open world storytelling that they did. That what you were saying about how Bluto's going to point you to the Master Sword. We've talked about like after each divine beast they do that.
Yeah,
right?
every time they're like, "Where's your sword?"
And you'll find I think like people at stables who will allude to the story of the sword. And this is great because it makes sure that like you're not gonna miss it, but it also becomes like a little redundant after a while. And like again, my buddy Todd, who like watches sometimes when I'm streaming, and we were like chatting, that he was saying like his issue with the game is that it's so verbose, and I've always wanted it to be like you can have like baby mode where it's like they give their whole spiel that points you in the right direction every time you talk to a character, which is how the game is designed. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure,
Like
sure, yeah.
how like you'll talk to somebody and they'll give you a hint, and then every time you talk to them, they give you that same like 5 text panel hint.
Kind of like old school Zelda, where you talk to somebody and they'll say the same thing over and over again.
And then there should be like a pro mode where it's like it's just like, oh, you've gotten this hint at this stable or from this person, so now like we're gonna change everybody's text that reiterates that same hint to something simpler. I would love that. That would be so genius.
That's an interesting idea for a video game design to like really like alter the script as it's like unraveling for the player based on
It's like it's another layer of work, but it's not that hard. It's a literal like if this then that simple like application to the script. Like switch over to this spreadsheet once they've seen it here. It does like that's one of my like as we wind towards the end of the game, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to give some little mild critiques around the edges thing.
We've been fair in our critiques of the game over. I mean, I know it probably like our first discussion of this game was probably just us going, it's so awesome when they do the thing.
I mean, still like one of my top 10 to 5 of all time.
Yeah. So yeah, your boy Link, he's gonna need some hearts in order to pull the Master Sword. This is actually, that's a callback to the original game where you don't get a Master Sword, you get a Magic Sword. Mm-hmm. And in order to be worthy of those swords, you need to reach certain heart caches. And
there's no hints in that game about how many. You just kind of have to like.
You just got to keep getting hearts.
You just got to keep hustling. Yeah. You got to like just figure out where's that waterfall with the white sword. And then just keep going back and be like, can I pick it up now? Can I pick it up now? And then same with the graveyard for the magic sword. And then, this one, like, if you had gone to the Deku tree, it'll give you a spiel about, like, being powerful enough to draw it. You can try. Do you just game over if you try to pull it?
I haven't tried.
I forget. I think you end up backing off when you have, like, a quarter heart left.
Yeah, maybe the tree stops you. And you can't use like bonus hearts. Like you can't just eat a bunch of hearty truffles and then get the sword. It's real hearts or nothing, baby.
Yep, I tried that. I remember either trying that or like discussing it in the chat on my stream version of this and finding out like, nah, it ain't gonna work.
No. Okay, we don't often just like single out shrines, but I have to say, the Zikasho shrine is one of the worst shrines I've played. It's one of those motion controls ones where you've got to maneuver the ball to fall into the... I hate that stuff so much.
Where's that one?
I don't know where it is.
Or just give me more description of it.
I just wrote Zikasho motion controls suck in my notes.
I remember. So there's the one with the maze. That's pretty early on in the game.
Yeah, that one's kind of easy.
That one, you can also do a thing where you just kind of like flip the maze and throw the ball over.
Yeah.
The one I had trouble with this time was the one where you have to get 3 balls into 3.
That's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one.
It's like it reminds me of a
pachinko or.
They're not exactly pachinko, but they were like these little handheld like ball games.
Yeah,
and it's not fun.
Yeah,
I literally just kind of swing the controller around until I get lucky.
So let's see another a cool spot that I came across. It's the Akala Citadel ruins, which is a tower atop a mountainous like stronghold that's like being patrolled by drone guardians. I don't know if they have a specific name, but like the flying guardians that have become a menace in the sky. Mm-hmm. So this is like the environmental storytelling that they're doing here.
Yeah.
Like this is a place where you come across and there's like cannons all along the wall. where you're like, okay, what are these cannons defending the stronghold against? Is it like, was this a last stand against the Guardians, or was this like, were they just like, is this? It's an interesting spot where you have to ask like, why is this here? Why is it like this?
Yeah, and this is one I want to say, like, I know we say it's like not canonical. I think Age of Calamity addresses the like battle at the Akala Citadel.
Cool.
Somewhere it's addressed.
There are like malice pools flooding all over the base of the tower, and this is something I can't believe we haven't brought up yet. Ghostbusters 2. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Go off. Oh, yeah, I do.
The malice is that like spreads across Hyrule is a pink goo that when you touch it, it turns stuff evil. This is exactly what happens in Ghostbusters 2.
Right.
With the pink slime that they find under the streets of New York City. It was a way to, in Ghostbusters 2, the Vigo the Carpathian was the main bad guy of that one, which was like an evil warlord whose soul was like preserved in a painting of him, kind of a picture of Dorian Gray kind of approach. And this river of goo, it spreads malice in the city. When people are around it or they touch it, they become aggressive, they become short-tempered and violent, hateful, which helps to spread the negative energy needed to help reincarnate Vigo the Carpathian. Like, there's a lot of specifically Ghostbusters 2 in Breath of the Wild. And growing up, that was my favorite movie for the. It was the first movie I ever saw in movie theaters. I was 3 years old.
Yeah, I remember being very young and seeing that movie.
I loved Ghostbusters 2. And as an adult, Ghostbusters 1 is a superior movie overall. But 2 has a lot of my heart in it. And it's just, it kind of, I would love to talk with the creative team behind Breath of the Wild to just get any mention of like Ghostbusters 2 as a reference point for this movie, or for this game, because it's uncanny.
I feel like you'd get a lot more Studio Ghibli, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, and like whatever those were sourcing as well. Probably something closer to Japanese lore.
Yeah.
Before we got to Ghostbusters
I don't know,
2,
I think Dan Aykroyd's fingerprints are all over Breath of the Wild.
Doesn't invalidate the comparison though.
So from the Citadel ruins, like you're going here and you got to shoot some of the Malice eyes in order to completely explore the area, which is always fun. This is a nice little mini level.
Yeah, I actually I had a lot. I think I remember I had a lot of trouble on this playthrough with it because I didn't have enough stamina to like climb the tower that's here correctly or something. I just remember like going around it for a while and being like, what?
Yeah. There's
even though I've done it a couple times before.
Well, and there's plenty of like nooks and crannies here where you can find treasure chests that are a little like secreted away. But the main thing, about the Akala Tower was I wanted to finally introduce myself to Robbie over the Akala Ancient Tech Lab because I hadn't done that yet. And Robbie's an interesting character. He's an eccentric inventor, scientist mind who's living with like his wife and his robot mistress.
Wait, I thought it was his assistant. Isn't it like a younger assistant that he lives with?
It's his wife. She gets jealous of...
problematic age gap. This game's canceled. Shut down this podcast.
Whatever. Love is love. Age ain't nothing but a number unless the law is involved. And then we really got to be careful with those numbers. Robbie, he's got these like fun goggles that like make him kind of... all of the... I don't know if he's Sheikah specifically, but he's dressed in the Sheikah garb. And he's got like some Sheikah ancient tech. Obviously he's all about Sheikah ancient tech. He's like, he might have a romantic relationship with a Sheikah robot, which he's named Cherry. But he's got these goggles on that make him look kind of like a frog. He's got these frog eyes. And then when you go back to Kakariko Village, like the Sheikah like headquarters, there's frogs or toads all over the place there. Like a part of the like all their houses specifically look like toads. And we've already discussed a little bit how, in my opinion, and I think in other people's opinions too, how Impa reminds me a lot of Toad from Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
So I might just be trying to make that connection a bit too hard, but it's just more fuel for that fire. But right when you go introduce yourself to Robbie, he knows you. He's like, "Oh, Link, what's up?" And which is rare, you know. But he doesn't want to just trust his instincts. He's like, "Actually, take your clothes off. I want to like the Link I know had some scars, and I want to see those scars before I prove you." So Link strips down, and he's like, "Yeah, that's you. Okay, cool." There you learn that quote from Robbie. Quote, the goal of Sheikah research is to destroy the calamity that has endured across time. So that's, I mean, like we're seeing like, this is the tribe's like raison d'etre. Like they are on this planet to battle the Calamity Ganon. Like that is their main point of their research. Therefore, that is the point of their lives. But for Robbie, he also wants to
Tinker?
He wants to have sex with a robot.
Oh. You made it dirtier than I thought.
He is in love with his robot.
Yeah.
Like he named the robot after his first love, and his wife Jaren. She hates this relationship. She gets jealous anytime he calls the robot Cherry. She like storms off, and she's like, "I can't deal with this right now."
Yeah, I'm gonna loop back again in the video version. I've taken off all my clothes and talked to him, and he actually talks about your scars again if you take all your clothes off again.
Oh, cool.
When one receives such scars on their body, well, they could leave lasting memories in their mind as well.
Can we see the scars that he's referring to if we like?
That's part of why I did it. You cannot. Your boy is clean.
Do you have any scars? Emotional?
Mostly, yeah. No, I accidentally stabbed myself in art class in high school, and that scar is pretty much healed. I stabbed myself in the thigh with a utility knife.
Damn, dude.
Because we were doing this big, like, building with like cardboard projects. Anyway,
why don't you go ahead and strip down and show me that?
Yeah, I'm pretty much there.
Oh, there he is. Okay, so this is again like we did with Pura. We are going to need to relight the furnace with that blue flame that we've become aware of now. I heard this thing. I feel like this might just be me like puking up like a watered down discussion that might have happened on like the Joe Rogan Experience or something. But like I heard that like okay, fire is like such an important tool for the development of humanity, right? Like, and basically the idea is that like fire enabled humans to cook, which then allowed us to gain more nutritional value from the food that we would like that we can get more nutrition out of cooked meat than we can out of raw meat because we're able to eat more of it without getting sick, perhaps, which then allowed our brains to develop more because we had more calories coming in. That might be bullshit.
Yeah.
But,
as in like there's an argument to be made of it's like almost an evolutionary tool.
Without fire, we would not be so smart.
Right. Yeah.
And you think about
that is some like Joe Rogan brain
right.
shit. But like I don't know, maybe.
I mean, we're both sitting here in front of American flags, smoking cigars, and talking about.
I've got a gun and a sword on the wall behind me.
I've got 5 guns in my pocket. Wait, 3 guns. You got 5 guns.
It's important to normalize carrying openly. Okay.
Yeah. Would you be mad if I just showed up with a gun at any point, or like I wouldn't like wave it in your face, but.
But just make sure I know it's there.
Okay. I won't conceal carry. I'll open carry. On that same note though, like I also heard that like, human like consciousness wouldn't have developed if we hadn't like eaten magic mushrooms when we were cavemen or something like that. So I don't trust anything that simplifies how we got to where we are, and neither should you, listeners.
Go check out The Dawn of Everything. It's a
Oh,
good
dude.
book. Good book on this.
Great podcast, Rec. Check out the Joe Rogan Experience.
The Dawn of Everything is an actual good book that kind of makes fun of all that stuff.
Cool. So right outside of Robbie's tech lab, and so basically we're doing this thing where we're relighting the torches to make our way back to the furnace. This one's a more challenging run with the torch than Pura's. Pura's was obviously like, here's the basics, and then this time we're gonna throw a bunch of enemies at you. There's gonna be more obstacles, more environmental inhibitors to make it more difficult to light this torch. But yeah, there's just something heroic and fantastic about the hero. Like, it's a running with the torch. Like, it's one of those things that like just makes Link seem like a much more heroic, endearing character.
The basis of this and the reason they do the well, it's both the basis of the marathon, which is what's his name, Pheidippides running to bring the message from Marathon to Athens. I forget where, but that's like allegedly the distance this guy ran. And he showed up and he said, "The city is safe," and then he died.
Cool.
And then that's also like why they do the running of the torch for the Olympics.
Yeah.
So it's this is age old tropes.
And you know what? In today's discussion, we're going to talk about torches a lot, actually. But the next place I wanted to go to, we're just going to be kind of hopping around here because our boy needs some hearts. The Lomai Labyrinth Island. It's right off the coast of the Akala coast, and
at this point you're likely just gonna see it and get out the old paraglider.
It is such a approaching these labyrinths, which are I think this one it's like off the coast. It's like just a massive structure in the ocean. And it's like, to me, that kind of scares the shit out of me.
Right.
Like, it's so imposing. And also just to see structures, like, because, like, Breath of the Wild as a game has a lot of, like, wild space with no developments or anything. And then to just see something unworldly big and, like, symmetrical and with 90-degree angles. It's very starkly contrasted from the natural world that we've established here, and it's either lo mei or lo mai. I'm thinking lo mein noodles because it's spelled the same, Lomei. So maybe it's lo mei labyrinth. It's a colossal maze. It's got a shrine at the center. I want to talk a little bit about the way I tackle mazes in video games. It's the right hand strategy. Are you familiar with where I'm going with this?
No. My frustration with these has been like they're one of the only times in this game that I'm like, gotta turn my mini map on, and I'm just staring at the mini map.
Yeah.
And just sort of like trying to navigate that way, but. Tell me your way and let me hear if it's more fun than mine.
So this is something that I've noticed I started to do with pretty much every video game that I play now. And I believe I got this idea from, it's either a Clash of Kings or a Storm of Swords, which are the books in the Song of Ice and Fire, which is what Game of Thrones is based on. Mm-hmm. And in it, Daenerys Targaryen she enters a temple, and it's a maze. And basically, if you walk into a maze, put your hand on the right wall and just keep walking. And don't take your hand off the right wall. And eventually, you'll be able to get a full perimeter, and it's hard to get lost because if you ever get lost, you can just go back and go left every time. And like if I were to bring up my hero's path, like if you'd see me enter and like you walk in and then you just see the line go right, and then you just keep the right wall. You're not always turning right, but you're just keeping the wall to your right the entire time.
Interesting.
And it helps you kind of add some order to what can otherwise be a very chaotic and kind of mind fuck of a maze.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it, the overhead in the map myself right now, and I'm
Yeah.
sort of like, where would that take me?
Right,
Like my
right.
brain is sort of like, okay,
Yeah. It it
and mine's
it's not a perfect approach to solving mazes. Like certain mazes are made so that will not work.
right.
But I think it's an age-old approach to approaching labyrinths and mazes.
Yeah, and for the visual pod viewers out there, like my map isn't too far off from what you said. There's a couple points I'm like, let's go this way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just like there's kind of.
But I did kind of start with that of like, I'm loosely following the wall.
Yeah. Sometimes there's little breadcrumbs though that you'll want to follow instead of this like dogmatic like way of doing things.
And I also have the mini map where I can see the overhead and go like, oh no, I know that's a dead end. Skip that.
Yeah. So the way labyrinths work, Link is these. I mean, like to look at the labyrinth from like Link's perspective, like these walls are like 4 stories tall, and like one Rivali's Gale can get you to the top of the labyrinth if you wanted to like walk the top of the labyrinth instead.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, like you're in just this like unfathomably big structure, and it's just like make a turn, figure it out. Sometimes there's holes in the wall, and it's just a really fun, daunting challenge.
And worth noting, if you do a Rivali's Gale to go to the top, you've got the airborne guardians patrolling, and I think they are a bigger pain in the butt than the ground ones.
I agree completely, especially for your approach, because you said that you just like to wail on them. You don't like to really mess with the shield blocking, and that just whooped you, didn't it?
Yeah.
If you're watching,
it said no, go back down.
So this is in this the point of these every labyrinth. Are there 3 of them?
Yeah.
I think is there's a shrine that you can plainly see from the entrance of the labyrinth, and it's to access it. To access it, it requires a little exploration. It's not as straightforward as you would hope it would be. It's a labyrinth, for God's sake. So, like, yeah. The prize at this one, you get a travel medallion. This is one of the best tools that I've come across in a while in this game.
I almost never use it in Breath of the Wild.
But do you use it
and
in its
it
sequel?
Maybe makes a return in its sequel, and I in that game use it a lot. It's a much more necessary resource, I feel like, in that game.
Interesting.
For reasons players might understand.
Yeah. So for this one, this is for all intents and purposes, this is Farore's Wind from Ocarina of Time, where Link can set the travel medallion down, and then he'll be able to warp to that spot from any other point on the map. Incredibly useful, especially if you're trying to access a place that doesn't have a shrine nearby. You can use it anywhere. It's one of those. It's a great spot, especially like if you find a place where you can maybe harvest a rare material, and then you get a blood moon, and then you can just warp right back there. Good stuff. So the next shrine quest. So yeah, again, right now Link is just trying to get enough hearts, aka spirit orbs, in order to draw the Master Sword. I came across a fun shrine quest called the 3 Giant Brothers, and this is you get to fight all 3 versions of the Hinox.
Yeah. You know what? I don't think I ever finished this one in any of my playthroughs.
It's great. So you'll come across this little structure, and there's some like glowing recesses where you know that a orb is supposed to be placed.
Actually, I gotta step back for 1 second to the labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
The 3 labyrinths hold the barbarian.
The barbarian armor.
Did we mention that?
We talked about it in the last episode a little bit. But yeah, the barbarian armor set increases your attack power And it's pretty much just like anytime you're going to fight a powerful enemy, you're going to put that on, and then you're going to eat some bananas or something that will increase your attack power.
Yeah.
And then you can just like really max out your damage output.
Yeah, and in that first labyrinth we talked about, you can also go in the basement and get a free diamond circlet.
Yes, thank you for
which
bringing
is
that
a
up.
great.
Yes.
We might have already mentioned it. It's a
did.
great supplement for fighting guardians until you can afford like the ancient armor,
which
From
Robbie
Robbie,
will make
yeah.
for you. That's another thing we should mention about Robbie is that once you've got his furnace lit, he can build ancient tech for you. For me, that means I'm going to buy some ancient arrows, mostly, is what I'm buying from him. I try very hard not to obsess over collecting every item in this kind of game, or about spending too much time amassing rupees in order to buy what could be kind of like unnecessary junk. Like, let's talk about the Sheikah ancient tech chainsaw that Link can have.
I've
purchased.
never wasted my money on them. They look so sick, but I'm like they'll break so fast.
Yeah, that's the
know?
main problem with ancient tech is that it's just got no durability. But it's just like the Sheikah people have laser chainsaws, and but we live in a world where people's like main mode of transportation is horses, and it's just that like dichotomy of like are the Sheikah like willfully keeping the rest of the world in the dark with their tech? Like, you don't see, when we get into our DLC conversation, we're going to talk about the master cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, okay, we've got this technology. Can we help out our fellow Hylians maybe? Like, get them like universal health care or something? I don't know.
Well, that's not how the real world works either.
No,
so
yeah, you benefit from keeping people down.
yeah, and I've just been curious. I brought up the barbarian armor just because like it's a curious piece of lore that
Yes.
like when just Breath of the Wild was out, people speculated it was maybe
Zonai. We talked
Zonai.
about this in the Death Mountain discussion a little bit.
Yeah.
Where like I incorrectly just called it Zonai armor.
right.
But that was based on a discussion from one of the Zelda lore pages that I follow on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Zeltic or Hyrule Gamer or Nintendo Black Crisis. Like these guys that do very similar videos where
Yeah.
they just like take Zelda way too seriously.
Even more seriously than us.
I'm not going to pass judgment.
Yeah, we're more of like the riff level of seriousness,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah.
they're like, I'm digging in the books, I'm making sure I'm
Yeah,
accurate.
Those guys are tying their ties and putting suspenders on. Well, we're more Hawaiian shirt here.
Yeah. That's very good. Yeah, very chill. I mean, I'm digging because like, and I want to go back to it because I don't think it's a spoiler to say like if you've played even the opening few hours of Tears of the Kingdom at this point, like you'll go, it's not Zonai armor.
Oh, okay.
But the in-game description says something about it being. I'm going to read one of them. Whoops, I had it on screen. There it is. Armor once favored by an ancient warlike tribe from the Pharaon region. So it could be, and I think within Breath of the Wild have learned that the Zonai had some sort of, I don't know, foothold in the Pharaon region as well.
Yeah.
So it could just be like whoever their enemies were.
Oh,
you
interesting.
Know? That's what I would speculate at this point. Look at me. I'm on the speculation. I've been talking long enough. You've got me speculating.
Welcome to the dark side. The Zonai did not make the barbarian armor, apparently, but they did make a whole bunch of mysteries. Because, yeah, we find, like, Zonai ruins, and there's also theories that, like, is Link a Zonai? Which, if we're just talking about Breath of the Wild, we don't know. And that's all we need to say about that little tidbit for now. But I want to go back to the shrine quest of the three giant brothers.
Yes.
So yeah, Hinoxes, big trolls, ogres. We've talked about them a little bit, but Cyclops, Cyclopean trolls that are maybe like 20 feet tall, and so they have all the Hinoxes in the game have necklaces that they carry treasure on. Usually it'll be like some like higher class weapons.
Just pretty gruesome when you think about it. It's like these are the trophies of the men that I've killed.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, they're man eaters. Like,
Yeah.
but in this case, they have the glowing orbs that would be used to access the Sheikah shrine that will be uncovered once we've recovered all three of them. And so there are three different tiers of Hinoxes that you can fight. I believe there's a red, a blue, and a black Hinox. And
I've
the red
never
is
noticed.
the weakest, and I think the black is the strongest. And a fight with a Hinox, like, I think most people, the way they'd approach it is you shoot him in the eyeball with an arrow, it goes into stun, and then you can just like go into swing mode while he's on the ground. Some of the fun little variations that Hinoxes can offer, sometimes they wear leg armor, which is basically just like big planks of wood on their shins, like they're wearing shin guards. And that'll make it so you can't attack their legs directly. But if you just shoot them with a flaming arrow, that'll burn them off their legs, which is great. Let's see. Yeah, so, this is another opportunity just to like go into some like it's a nice little boss fight run. The way I'd look at it. Mini boss, they're not that difficult, especially with the kinds of weapons that we're packing at this point. So that's another shrine. Great.
Yeah.
I've got to get 16 of these fucking things until I can access the Master Sword.
I was trying to make it back there in game I was trying to make it back there in game to like remind myself of why I wasn't able to do it or why I didn't. What do you have to do with the three balls? They all have to go to the same place?
Yeah. There's like a cliff in the center of the three different Hinox spots because they're all like so like the Hinoxes are like sleeping in these like their own little like areas, and once you defeat them, they drop their balls, and then you gotta basically like fetch them and bring them back all to the central area. So it's just a little bit of like back and forth. It's not too big of a drudge, but it is kind of like whoa.
I'm pretty sure that's why I never got to it. It was like such a completionist thing that by the time I found it, I was like, I get it. It's like
well, it's like you said in the last episode. It's like I want to press the "I get it" button.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I don't need this. I get what's gonna happen if I do it. Honestly, same with. I'm gonna talk about like another sort of quest shrine just briefly. Is there's one I never did where like I think if you do every side quest in Kakariko, there's like the orb that Paya's protecting in Impa's house that you can take up the hill.
I've never done that.
And get a shrine. It's another one where it's like, I get it, just not gonna do it.
Yeah, I thought it was funny too. Like after I after I freed all the divine beasts, I've got the Master Sword. I'm wearing Link's like champion's tunic. I went over to try to pick that up next to Impa, and she was like, "I have to insist you don't touch that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Lady, it's me. Like without me, you don't have an orb. Like, come on." But whatever. Just because you're the hero doesn't mean that you're the center of the universe. I found a fun little, like, of course it happens like this. Breath of the Wild is just like chock full of very satisfying small details. But one that I really enjoyed. I was using a frost blade, which imbued with the power of ice. So if you hit enemies with it, it'll freeze them. Also, though, if you swing at a fire with the frost blade, it'll put the fire out.
Oh.
It's just like, oh, hell yeah, right on.
I would just kind of the way the physics engine works, or in general, I would be like, I'd assume it just like deflate your frost power.
No.
That seems the natural. I don't know.
No, it works like a fire extinguisher.
Interesting.
Yeah, so let's talk about Eventide Island. This is where Link gets to become an island boy.
I'm an island boy. You should have told me that was going to come up. I could have had it on the soundboard.
Eventide Island is a fun little shrine quest right off the eastern coast of Hyrule. You get to access it by there's a shrine on the coast that's like way up high, and you can just like paraglide right to Eventide Island. It's very satisfying because like it's like a long distance off the water, and you're like, I hope my stamina
Yeah.
pulls through for this. Of course, mine does. But,
I've been gaming this the whole time, ready for it, which is like what I'm about to do here now. But the cool thing is like there's so many ways you can really get to it.
the first time I did it, I just did the ice block.
I've done
jumping.
that when I didn't have enough
sucks so
stamina.
bad, dude. It sucks so much. If you know what we're talking about, it's where like you can use Cryonis.
Yeah.
And it creates the block. You jump on that block, and then you just Cryonis again and again and again. And you just keep leapfrogging all the way, lily pads all the way to the island.
Yeah. Like another option, I think this is the way I did it the first time. That there's a shrine that's out in the sea.
It's like a halfway point.
It's off of what is it called? I don't know if there's a name, like the Kitano Bay, the Hateno Bay and the Kitano Bay. There's like a halfway point, and I think the natural way to get there is you can find like a raft, and if you have a Korok leaf, you blow yourself out.
We haven't talked about that. Really.
Yeah.
Just like using the Korok leaf. I don't think we've even talked about the Korok leaf as a device in the game.
Not really, and like that's I think the way I found it the first time, and that was pretty early on, like my first playthrough, and I did not fare well. I've never beaten Eventide Island.
So I beat Eventide Island a couple days ago, just playing through. So the gimmick for Eventide Island is as soon as Link steps foot on the beach of Eventide Island, you get stopped with some dialogue. It's that ominous like shrine. It's like the monk voice is speaking to you from beyond, saying like, you're not gonna use any equipment while you do this, basically, and like it all just kind of disappears, and you're back to square one. You're naked, you got no weapons, you still have your Sheikah Slate, and you still have your champion's abilities. So you're not totally like back to square one, but can't rely on all the food you've amassed, on any potions or anything else. So it's
And apparently for me, it's storming on top of it all.
Oh, fun. So this is this is another one where there's glowing orbs all around, and you need to find the orbs and then put them in the recessed holes. There's 3 of them to activate the shrine.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know I said I've never beaten it, not because I'm bad at this game. It's just, again, give me an I get it button. I can beat all this. Don't deny my gamer skills. Is all I'm saying.
Hey man, this is really a challenge of your skills, though. It's making you
Oh, I could. Don't worry, I could.
Yeah,
I just choose not to.
Just like I choose not to be a millionaire.
I'm a temporarily embarrassed, non-Eventide Island finisher. Okay.
What Eventide Island does for the gamer is it makes you appreciate what your Sheikah Slate offers, and like the skill that you've amassed at this point. Because this is not the first shrine anyone's going to be accessing in the game, which would be wild if it was. But
that would be quite a feat.
I think the biggest challenge that I had on Eventide Island is there's a Hinox fight here, and we were just saying how easy it is to defeat Hinoxes with all of our high-powered weapons. It's not so easy when you've got literally tree branches as your primary weapon.
Yeah.
Now there is a little exploit you can do if you. Okay, so right before you enter Eventide Island, you can just drop a couple of weapons like in the water.
Oh yeah.
And then you go on
and
to
they
the
stay.
beach, and it takes all your stuff away, and then you can go grab them, and then you can have some high-powered weapons, and you can just like slay through this. I'm not saying maybe that's what I did. But, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the challenge that Eventide Island presents is it's the Hinox fight, because there are a couple of environmental assists that you can take advantage of in your fight against the Hinox. There's going to be some boulders, there's going to be some explosive barrels, things that you'd be like, oh, well, I could stasis this boulder. The Hinox is asleep at the bottom of a hill. Maybe I'll try to push some boulders onto the Hinox and get things started. And I'm on the top of like a plateau, and yeah, I'm looking down at a Hinox who's asleep. I stasis a couple of boulder. I stasis one boulder. I give it a couple hits, and it launches into the Hinox, and it takes off like a sliver of health.
Right.
It's like, come on, man. Like,
that is again, if I'm going to nitpick around the edges, for as much as they like tutorialize, look what you can do with the physics engine, and then like you go through all this work to do stuff like that, and you're like, oh,
it took off
okay.
1/20th of his health.
Yeah, never mind. I'm just going to throw my barbarian armor back on and wail on them.
Exactly. But otherwise, Eventide Island is pretty unremarkable outside of like, yeah, the it's a gimmick. It's just fun to like, you know, at this point we're just like managing a huge inventory to have it all taken away. It's kind of liberating in a way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So once you've completed this shrine quest, there's absolutely no reason to go back to Eventide Island like ever again in the game. But if you're watching the video right now, Josh is doing a fun little tactic where you sneak onto the Hinox's hand while he's asleep, and eventually he's gonna go to scratch his chest, and he brings Link right onto him.
No, it didn't work.
Oh no, he just like
I was hoping I could steal some weapons,
or maybe even the entire orb. But yeah, it's just a fun little thing.
And I'm dead.
So
because I have nothing but tree branches. Yeah.
Yeah, this thing's about to kill you.
Anyway.
That, you know, I think that's enough on Eventide Island
Yeah.
here. It's a fun little side quest, and I want to just say it kind of reminds me. So at the top of the island, there's like a big craggy rock that looks like, to my trained eye, it looks like Koholint Island from Link's Awakening, where there's the windfish's egg at the top of the island. It kind of looks like that to me.
And it's called Koholint Rock.
Oh shit, dude. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is,
you know what? Hold on. I'm patting myself on the back.
yeah,
On my back.
which is interesting. There's a lot of stuff where they pull out little Easter egg name things.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Lake Hylia is an obvious one, but then there's
I mean, there's like a Saria forest. There's references to like, you know, everything Zelda related at some point. Like, are we gonna find like a Catherine the Horse Island here?
But like another like Breach of Demise is another good one.
Mm-hmm. That's a cool one. That's over by the Forgotten Temple. I remember that.
Yeah, it's like southeast of that area.
I had a note. We were talking about like the name origins of all of the different divine beasts, right? We got the obvious ones like Ruta, Naboris, Redania being an anagram of Darunia, and the only one that we're kind of stuck on was Meadow.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's Midna?
Oh,
like that's the closest like kind of a sage type name that I could think of that would come close to it.
Yeah, interesting. Because
Midna being the princess of Twilight from Twilight Princess.
Yeah, and I feel like I remember the hiccup we ran into there was neither of our memories of Wind Waker, where the Rito are introduced, is very good. Because I played that game once when it came out, and I was like, I don't like all the sailing, and never went back. Anyways,
yeah, maybe there's a Rito named something similar.
Yeah, if it comes up in my book of my Sheikah slate of lore that's in front of me in the next minute or two as we continue, I'll turn back to it.
You know,
otherwise,
if you're just yelling at the podcast right now, why don't you go ahead and give us an email, catvideogames@gmail.com, and let us know where the name came from, because we're not going to dwell on it too much. Next order of business is to finally approach the Lost Woods.
Excellent.
And like that's I mean, there's a Lost Woods in every mainline Zelda game, as far as I know. It's where you get the Master Sword in A Link to the Past. It's an important like landmark that just keeps recurring throughout the series.
Yeah, and the first instance of the Lost Woods would be in the original Zelda. It's the path that you have to take to the graveyard, where you find the magic sword.
Right, and I think you have to go northwest, southwest in order to do it. It's like,
yes.
You know, you've got 4 different ways, and you've got to go north, west, southwest, and then you'll access the entry to the graveyard. Now, from a physical standpoint, the Lost Woods, it's foggy. You can't just see more than a few feet in front of you, and you'll learn like right as you enter the Lost Woods, which is just north of Hyrule Castle, is that it's going to give you a torch, and there's like one torch, like a hand torch, and then there's like a fire ready, and the strategy to like navigating the Lost Woods, because if you go too far off of the safe trail, it'll just warp you back to the beginning with like a giggle, like a Children of the Forest giggle at you. The Koroks, they seem to be a little mischievous and a little they take some pleasure in the fact that this is a trial and difficult for Link. I don't know. It seems a little malicious, but like not malicious, but like a little deviant.
Yeah, I think it's funny how like the cutest, most friendly sort of tribe or whatever in the game has the most contradictory, ominous like defense zone around where they live.
Yeah. Well, it's like because they are not an aggressive species. Like I could never imagine a Korok doing any sort of combat, right?
Right.
So instead, their armor is the impossible maze that they live in.
And that like even they are afraid of like the land around them, because after we make it to the center and find their little village, one of the side quests to get a shrine is very tedious, like sort of stealth following mission of like this Korok who wants to make it to a certain part of the woods. And I don't know if you had this on doc to talk about, but it's great. It's very tedious and annoying to do. But he's so scared that like if you make too much noise, he turns around and he finds you. But the whole time he keeps like trying to like trump himself up to be like, I'm brave, I can do it. Like it's very, very cute, but annoying. So like even they are scared of their natural environment that surrounds them.
That's wild. So the trick with using your torch to navigate the Lost Woods is you want to watch the flaming embers that are wisping off of your torch, and they follow the wind, and the wind directs you to where to go. So it's really fun, honestly. Like I love this type of. You only have to do it once, and then you can just follow all of the like lit torches back to the middle of the Lost Woods if you wanted to do that. But there's also a shrine when you get there, so you don't ever really need to traverse the Lost Woods unless you're doing these side quests that like you were just talking about.
Yeah, and the first time I did it, I remember like having a lot of trouble. I don't know if I knew to use my own torch, because you get to a certain point where you can't see the next pre-lit torch.
Right.
Very well, and I just would get lost over and over and over again.
Yeah, but yeah, you just follow the little particle trails, and if you just do a straight line in the direction that it goes, it'll take you to the next torch.
And there's also somewhere in here the Korok mask that helps you find Koroks. Never found that either.
Oh, I'm so uninterested in collecting Koroks.
Right. It's like I'm naturally going to run across enough of them.
Right.
And, and my little visual demonstration, I just did what I was talking about. I tried following what I thought was straight line of those two torches, and boom, it sends you back.
Yeah, it's best to just keep a torch in hand the entire time so you can keep watching the particle trails. But once you get to the center, you're in the Korok Forest, which is like, the Lost Woods houses the Korok Forest. It's like a gated community. The big two big returning characters here. I'm gonna call them both characters. You've got the Deku Tree.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! Who doesn't love a big talking tree?
I love him.
And especially in this design, he is just so like gentle, like and like wise and goofy almost. Like there's like a silliness to him that is like also kind of like hidden by the like ancient world wariness that this thing is like eons old. And I don't know if this is like canonically supposed to be the baby Deku Tree that Link helped to like nurture in Ocarina of Time, right? Like the original Deku Tree is killed by Ganondorf's magic, and then a new tree takes its place. I think that's supposed to be this tree, unless it's just a part of a cycle. Like, there's a new seed
Yeah.
every 10,000 years or whatever.
Yeah, it could be anything. I think of this game, we've probably talked about it over and over. This is sort of, it's so far past the future of any timeline in Zelda that it's like all of the timelines and lore have just fused, and it's like almost like a reset button.
I feel like that's what Nintendo wants to do, and I'm not going to look at your face when I talk about maybe that's what Tears of the Kingdom's doing, but I assume that they really are trying to like say like, hey, there's just one timeline. Like, let's chill on all this, guys.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm very close to the end of Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm still not exactly sure.
I'm so excited. So like, we're almost like campers. We're almost through like our extended like discussion of Breath of the Wild, and that means then it's going to be some me time with Tears of the Kingdom, because we're not going to cover Tears of the Kingdom for the foreseeable future, as I would like to. Like, I'd like to like have some time, maybe 6 years from now, when it's a 6-year-old game.
Or if that rumored Zelda movie gets made.
Oh my god! I don't want a Zelda movie.
People made a big deal about it on Twitter. Like, they're gonna make a Zelda movie, and their source was like just some random movie podcast on YouTube.
Oh yeah, and as a podcaster, I can say that anything.
Dude, they're making
podcast.
Whatever.
Very
go
credible.
Spread this on Twitter. Zelda movie confirmed.
I'm actually going to be playing Tingle. It's a breakthrough role for me. Break through that onesie. Okay.
Oh.
So there's 2 characters that are recurring here. We got the Deku Tree. Love that boy.
Yes.
Second character, the Master Sword. I'm going to say it's a character. Now, when we get to a sword in the stone at the center of a triangle at the base of the Deku Tree. We're setting the scene here. The forest is a swirling mystery all around you. You've got nice little like freaky cute music, and then these Koroks are just like crawling all over. They're like babies that are just like
I love them so
adorable
much.
little like Cabbage Patch Kids or something. And so yeah, basically the way I see it, like by pulling the sword, Link is accepting his fate as the hero. Like where it's like it's life or death now, where it's like you have to do this in order to fulfill your destiny. Like, yeah, sure, you can maybe go defeat Calamity Ganon without it, but like it doesn't fulfill the prophecy. The sword needs to be an integral part of this ritual, because as we've learned from Impa, this is not the first time that Ganon has attacked and that they've had to repel him. And like this is like they're on rinse and repeat with this type of guy. Like you got to keep doing this, and you've got to use Zelda's sealing magic in conjunction with the Master Sword.
And something that's interesting about Zelda lore is that like you're always doing this process. You're always doing this rinse and repeat process. And we never, short of a couple of this game's endings, see any glimpse of like what peacetime looks like or looked like.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
Just like this, we're just like constantly acting on faith, that like if we stop this pig man, there will be a time of peace, maybe.
Well, I think Kurt Vonnegut said like start your story as close to the ending as possible. So it's like, because what is interesting about like fiction or about like a story is usually what is the trouble? What's the trouble? What are people going through?
Yeah.
And so, and you got to be kind of efficient with these types of games, because they're packing so much stuff in here that like presumably like, boring as hell when there's nothing going on.
And the game I can think of in the series that comes closest to that is Twilight Princess, that has a opening hour
the
or
Ordon
two.
Village segment.
And I remember it being pretty boring. And not
they're
wanting
like,
to
can
revisit
you go find my cat?
I'm like, no, I don't care about your stupid cat.
I'm like, actually, can I just do that? Can I just play with cats for the rest of the game? He's like, I did not really enjoy Twilight Princess that much.
Was this game Stray?
Oh man, is that a good game? Did you play it?
I haven't played it yet, actually.
I've watched a lot of like people reacting to it, being like, "Oh, I love cute cats." I do love cats. Let's talk about the Master Sword, Josh.
Yeah, sure. Are you gonna talk about the sword itself or the process of getting it in the game yet? Because there's like one detail I really want to point out in getting the sword in the game.
Please do so.
That is, what I call a happy accident of development. And then we'll backtrack to whatever you want to talk about. So like when you I think it's when you first come in and the Deku Tree tells you the lore of the sword. There's the Koroks are like play out what the Deku Tree is like telling you usually, and like again for podcast viewers, I had on screen when I was going into the master. What is the master sword quest?
Trials
thing
of the
game?
Sword.
And they show the Koroks trying to sort of like playing out, some stuff as part of the cutscene. So an interesting thing, this is what I'm calling the happy accident, is when you're in the Korok forest, the frame rate drops a lot because there's so many assets loaded in because of each Korok is like another little character that has to be loaded in. So the frame rate drops when it's telling you the lore of the sword, so that it looks like stop motion animation on purpose.
Oh, that's funny.
And like a couple of the shots, and I had to sit and think about it for a few minutes. Be like, did they do that on purpose, or is that? I'm pretty sure it's just a happy accident. I love that. Like, I used to like teach music production as my job, and like I would tell kids that all the time. Like when we're just like poking around and you find something and you're like, that sounds great. Happy accidents.
Hell
like
yeah.
there's so much of that in like development of games, art, whatever. And I just love that little detail. I wanted to ruminate on it.
No need to apologize, my friend.
I don't know if it like showed up when I was demoing it on screen earlier. It doesn't happen quite the same in the scene I was showing, but anyway, to the lore.
Well, so we learned that. Let's see. The Deku trait says that the sword stands as a test to anyone who would dare possess it, which is basically is like you got to have the heart to pull it from the stone. Obviously, this is derived from King Arthur, like the sword and the stone. We're talking about Excalibur, which was, depending on what side of the internet you go to, it's a fake sword. There's no such thing as King Arthur. There's no such thing as Excalibur. This is all fantasy. But some people really want to believe that. It's like, I don't know, I feel like it's like a lot of like white nationalists are like kind of like wrapped up in like Arthurian legend.
It is funny. Anytime we get into like Western European lore, as like I'm actually like diverted a little bit from even like the God of War series, because all that stuff feels white nationalist adjacent to me.
Yeah, it's like getting like a Celtic tattoo. And like,
right.
No.
Makes me
no shade being thrown if you're legitimately, into Celtic stuff, I guess.
It's just like, it just feels like a half shade away from being into that,
Yeah.
Not to like dismiss like that there is interest in lore, and like this is, it's a trope that is worth using in storytelling of today, like we're talking about right
and
now.
You can celebrate your cultural heritage without it being a hate crime.
Yeah.
Like that's all very well and good. Like I'm of British descent to some degrees, and like, sure, does that mean that I like? Well, I already got on record as being like fuck royalty and like fuck the monarchy and like all that stuff. Yeah, anyway, whatever.
My only background is like dirt poor Italians, and then like there's just like, I don't know, we were just sort of like whatever.
Yeah.
We're there.
We're Midwesterners. That is our true culture.
I don't have a real culture other than like putting mayonnaise in salad.
It's called dressing. We learned from the Deku tree that 100 years ago, after Link was killed, Zelda returned the Master Sword to the Deku tree for safekeeping and to recharge it because it had been like destroyed in battle. And like I think with a lot of the promotional imagery for Breath of the Wild, we see like a broken sword or like scraggly and like it's kind of rough around the edges. So apparently by returning it to the stone, that will reinvigorate the sword.
Yeah. Can we at this point sort of talk about, because some of this is leaning into like the memories that we were going to talk about in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
And this is one.
This is an important memory. Go ahead.
Yeah. We find out it's around Fort Hateno is where Link had his final stand before he was, dropped and had to be recovered for 100 years. And I forget, somebody takes him to the shrine. Right. I forget who.
Robbie.
Yeah.
That's why he wants to see the scars.
Is it at that point that Zelda takes the sword and beelines for the Deku tree?
Yeah,
is that
I believe
the
that's
idea?
how it works out. I can't speak on it with too much authority because I also wanted to like watch all of the memories in chronological order.
Yeah.
Which there is a video available on YouTube that has done that legwork for us already.
Yeah, like I want to rewatch that before I go too deep into this. But one of those scenes I think does play when you first get the
I believe
sword.
so. Yeah. So talking about the Master Sword as a physical item, I did a little bit of research. I am not a sword guy. I like swords. I think they're cool, especially when they are used to fight dragons. But the sword as a tool is like kind of like it only has one purpose, and that's to kill people.
Yeah.
And so that like not the best invention in the world, but as as a kid, watching perhaps the Legend of Zelda animated series, you see swords and you see like a goofy good guy using them. You're like, I want a sword. So the Master Sword is a long sword. It's not a broadsword because if you were to, if we're looking at the visuals here right now, Link is holding the Master Sword, and we can see the length of the blade. Now go ahead to the broadsword you've got in the bottom right corner.
Yeah. Let's see. The knight's broadsword.
Significantly shorter
Oops.
than the Master Sword.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think the Master Sword could either be classified as a traditional long sword, which is what Excalibur is traditionally known as, or it could be a bastard sword, which is kind of a step between a long sword and a claymore. I think that's right. Where it's a claymore is a two-handed sword. What's the German word? Zweihander.
Ein Zwei. Yeah.
Whereas a bastard sword is you can't. It's a 1.5 hand sword, where you could wield it with one hand if you're strong enough, but it's also got a long enough hilt that you could use two hands for a more powerful swing. So the hilt on the Master Sword, it's like this is the same design that we've had of the Master Sword basically since A Link to the Past, to some degree. It's always been a blue hilted long sword with some embroidery, some embellishments on it. The blade is, I don't know how to describe it. Like it's like thinner at the hilt, and then it's got like a big, like widens out. And it's kind of like a fun. Everything's so phallic in my brain too.
Oh yeah,
like you're just like sword's big. I like big sword.
And it always has that like winged hilt pointing up towards that indented part, and it has the Triforce on it.
Oh yeah. We see very few Triforces in this game.
That's why I mention it.
Yeah,
we've sort of called out the very few mentions or visuals of the Triforce, and this is one of them.
Yeah. So we get a bit more lore from the Deku Tree. The Master Sword is a legendary sword that seals the darkness. Its blade gleams with a sacred luster that can oppose the calamity. Only a hero chosen by the sword itself may wield it. Or actually, that's what just the description of the sword that the game gives you. So whenever you're fighting against Ganon, Calamity Ganon, or like any malice tinted enemies, the sword will shine and it'll like gleam like a ethereal blue, like Sheikah blue kind of, which also reminds me a lot of like Frodo's sword Sting from the Lord of the Rings, where anytime you're around orcs it glows blue. We
use tropes for a reason. We recognize them, our brain makes connections.
Yeah. So one of the fun gameplay mechanics that the Master Sword offers that differentiates it from other swords that you have, aside from like one other sword that I can think of, is if you were to try to throw the Master Sword, Link will release an energy bolt when he's got full health. Eat an apple.
All right.
If you're watching on the video, again, if you didn't know, we have a video component to this podcast on YouTube.
It's more fun that way. You should go check it out on YouTube.
But also, if you're just listening, like that's kind of how I envisioned this podcast would just be an audio. But like, it makes way more sense to have visuals for this type of stuff. Yeah. So you can launch sword blasts just like our old pal Link from the first game and the second game. And what other games does he do that? Full health.
Link to the Past. I don't know. I don't remember well enough. I'm sure Skyward Sword.
Oh yeah, God.
And the problem is like
the mechanics for the actual motion controls for Skyward Sword really just like I probably played like 20 hours of that game, and then I was just like, fuck this. Like,
yeah, it's funny. Like from Ocarina of Time to this game, not a lot of replayability for me. There's sort of like the uncanny valley of like polygonal 3D game design, which wait till we talk about Donkey Kong Country.
coming up soon, perhaps.
Then I'll go ham on that stuff.
All right. So okay, Link, he's got the Master Sword. So the big thing is that he pulls it from the stone, right? And like that seems to like it's like taking it from its charge port. You know, it's like he's unplugged the sword and now he's got it. There's some detail. I don't know any other opportunities I'll have to talk about like the sword and the stone for King Arthur lore, but in the original like story, Excalibur is buried into an anvil, which is resting on a boulder. And so they're basically I think they're doing visually was representing the different ages of man, where you've got unrefined natural materials, steel, and then sword. Mm-hmm. You know, so like you see the development, like, you know, because originally humans were just killing each other with rocks. Then we were killing each other with like hammers and like bludgeons, and then it finally came to like the perfect tool, which is the sword to kill people.
The perfect tool so far.
So far, yeah. Wait until you hear about the AR-15.
This is actually like, if I can diverge for a second.
Yeah, please do. I would love to not talk about this anymore.
Well, this is exactly what I'm going to talk about.
Click, click, boom, baby.
This is like, God, where did I hear about this? I don't know, like maybe like Radiolab. There's something about like human, like the way human evolution has worked is that like the further we can remove ourselves from like the violence, the easier it is to inflict.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we're going to have drone warfare in the next like 5 years.
And the easier it is to accept that it's happening like on your behalf or that you're contributing to it. So like the thing I'm vaguely remembering is talking about how like when wars, you know, we're talking about like the sword. When war was like you had to get up in the guts of your enemy.
Yeah.
The death rates were like exponentially lower because like it's hard to just rail through a person,
right?
And just keep going and going and going.
Humanity's a social creature, and like it's like, it goes against our basic nature to just murder.
Yeah,
and like that's why people who are like cold-blooded killers are like kind of outliers of society, because like it shouldn't be in your nature to just be like, oh yeah, I'll kill a person.
Yeah, and then like that like exponentially. Well, it started. You know, we had gunpowder, and then it starts going up, and then you hit like I don't know numerically, but it feels accurate to say it's like a J curve up when we had the machine gun in World War I and trench warfare.
Yeah,
and that's why that war was just like
and the proliferation of like mustard gas and like mass killing devices.
We could
bombs
put this distance between the violence you're inflicting. And it just gets worse and worse from there. And now it's like just living as an American, you are like a culprit of that violence. Living as somebody in the industrialized world, you know, this is like plagues me and keeps me up at night all the time. And to bring it back to Zelda.
Well, that's why Link in the cartoon, he only zaps people. He just doesn't want to get blood on his tunic.
Honestly, like that's kind of the mentality that they're implying this mentality to, like in the cartoon, they're like, we don't want to show this level of violence to children. So we're going to have him zap them. There won't be any visceral blood. It's the exact same mentality we've had for however long civilization's been going. And how was I? Oh, I'm going to tie it back to Zelda. Is that Sorry, I'm going to talk a little Tears of the Kingdom. It's so widely
No, go
memed
for
at
it.
this point. I don't think it's spoiling.
I'm so numb right now. It's fine.
That like if you've been on the internet, if you've been on YouTube, Twitter, whatever, and you're following Zelda, talk at all, you've seen the Korok abuse people are inflicting with Zonai devices.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you're not ramming them through with a sword. So people are being like so vindictive.
Yeah,
I can fly this mech over them and just rain hellfire, and I'm not physically doing it with a sword.
That's funny. Thinking about Korok abuse in Breath of the Wild, the most I've done really is accidentally drop boulders on them.
Yeah,
right.
And you feel horrible.
You'll pick up a boulder and you find a Korok, and then if you just drop the boulder, Link will just doosh, straight onto the Korok. And
I do that all the time on accident. I'm like, oh, I'm gone. I'm so sorry.
I know. I'm always like, baby, oh no.
I made that work. I tied that in.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm proud of you. Okay, let's talk about other appearances of the Master Sword in other games. I just had some basic functions that the Master Sword serves in these games. Essentially, okay, so A Link to the Past is the first time we see the Master Sword, and that enables you cannot defeat Ganon or repel Aghanim's attacks without the Master Sword.
Unless you have a bug catching net.
Unless you, the Master Net. In Ocarina of Time, the sword is a time travel device that is essential to access the sacred realm and to travel back and forth through time. In Wind Waker, it does sort of the same thing, right? You because you go underwater. Well, you were saying how you only played it once, but there's a section where you go back in time underwater to Hyrule Castle via the Master Sword, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, which Wind Waker is one I would absolutely go back to if
It's
they did a remaster.
A wonderful game, man.
Yeah.
It is so much fun. And
because of the graphics, the cell shading holds up.
I completely agree with what drove you away from it. Being the Triforce fetch quest that it gives you. Or it's first you got to find the maps, then you got to find the pieces, and then there's a lot of just busy work in that one. And then in Skyward Sword, you see the creation of the Master Sword. It turns from the Goddess Sword into the Master Sword, which is
you sort of build it. And isn't it Phi's soul becomes the Master Sword?
That's why I wanted to refer to this as a character, because the Master Sword canonically has a living being inside of it, or some sort of intelligence in it that Phi I'll say Phi. I think Phi, her voice, right? It was kind of that strange, robotic, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Talk about verbose. That's the thing I remember about that game. Is that Phi would not shut the F up.
Well, Cherry, the furnace, sounds a lot like Phi. And coincidence? I don't know. It was. I didn't think it was a coincidence that before they started to really roll out Tears of the Kingdom promotional stuff, they for some reason decided to remaster Skyward Sword, as if they were like, well, don't play the shitty Wii version that we released that everyone hated because of the motion controls. We're gonna do a better job, but you should probably pay attention to the story in this one. It seems like it might be kind of important. Enough said on that. I just can't wait. And to all of our listeners, thank you for not just sending me spoilers on this, because I know some of you vicious, sick, sweet campers are just frothing at the mouth, ready to ruin my day. But
yeah, it's so hard for me. We might need to just do a revisit Zelda episode after you've played it.
I'm sure I won't be sick of Zelda by then. I know I won't be. God, it's just I've got so much Zelda on my brain right now. So after you've drawn the sword, get this nice dramatic moment. If you go back to the pedestal, you can replace the sword into the stone, which would then start the trial of the sword, which is basically a combat gauntlet that has I think it's more than 10 stages. I think it's 15.
It's a lot
at a time, because there's different tiers. There's a beginning, middle, and every time you're gonna significantly increase the base attack power of the Master Sword. It starts at 30. I think you go to 45, then to 60, and beyond. Maybe I'm not sure of the specifics, but it's the Trial of the Sword is it's a combat gauntlet, and it's another return to no equipment and only rely on your Sheikah Slate and your skill. And the fights, it starts with some bokoblins, and it just keeps escalating from there.
Yeah, there's 3 tiers of it. The beginning is 12.
Okay.
Then you have to do 16 floors. And the final one is 23 floors. Yeah. And if you die, you go back to the beginning of that
Correct.
tier.
Yes. I the other night I was working my way through the first tier of it, and I got to like the 10th of the first tier, the 10th level, which is basically like a rest level where you can like cook and like and get some equipment, and like there's no enemies, and it's just a nice little like respite from all the combat. And I was like late at night, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop here and like return to this later. Well, I found out you can't save during this segment.
Nope.
Because you've got to just go through one and done. Like, don't die or you'll do it. And so I basically lost all my progress at that point, because the next morning, or whenever I started to play next, I don't just wake up in the morning and start playing video games, guys. I've got a job. I've got a lot of responsibility.
I do on Sundays, at least.
But basically, I saw like I started the game up, and I was in the map mode, and I saw that I was there. I was in the Korok Forest, and I decided to just warp somewhere. And when it went back to the game screen, I was on level 11 of the first tier, which means I was just one fucking level away from finishing this. And yeah, I just lost all my progress. And then I was like, you know what? I don't need a more powerful Master Sword. Do not need a more powerful Master Sword.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of these like completionist trials in games where you get something that's like so overpowered by the time you finish the trial. It's like you have to be so good at the game that it's completely useless to you.
Yes.
This was a big thing they did in like the mid-aughts. They were re-releasing a lot of Final Fantasy games with like an extra dungeon tacked on.
Oh, sure.
They did it with Chrono Trigger. And
I'd love to play that.
It's not fun.
Oh,
the Chrono Trigger one is really bad. It does give you a final boss that ties it to Chrono Cross, but like anyway, it's like it's just like so useless. It's like I don't know. I'm just not a fan of this style of final dungeon challenge. One that I remember is like exceptionally beyond just like what were you guys thinking difficulty is like maybe more difficult than this even. It's called like the Deep Dark Dungeon in Final Fantasy Tactics. I think you can't even see the floor, and that game's already so hard, and it's like 100 levels. And I don't remember what the reward is, but it's just like, man, you got to be a serious completionist for this kind of stuff. I'm like, story's done. I'm out of here.
Yeah,
guys,
that's how.
when I get to
especially
this
with
kind of
Tactics.
stuff.
Final Fantasy Tactics is an incredibly good game. It's a good series in general. I've enjoyed. I've played 3 different like titles in that one. The original,
and
Tactics,
the original is by far the hardest.
Game Boy Advance Tactics was a lot of fun, and then there was a DS re-release. I think it was like a remaster of the original Tactics.
The War of the Lions edition,
yes.
is the best version of that game to play.
Yeah, no, I didn't know about the Dark Dungeon. That sounds like incredibly not fun.
Yeah, it's similar to this. I think I did like a couple levels. I was like, not for me. I'm out.
Yeah. But I will say, upon finishing the Trial of the Sword, like every time you do it, I guess to talk about like geographically what happens when you place the sword back, it's like you're going into shrines. Like you've got the shrine like aesthetic around you, all the Sheikah like construction, everything looks like these aren't real bokoblins you're fighting. This is what's the word I'm looking for? It's like the danger room where it's not real.
Yeah.
Right? What is that? What is the word I'm looking for?
Like an X-Men?
It's like an X-Men. It's like an illusion, or it's a what's the Matrix? It's like
I don't know. I'm thinking of the Danger Room in X-Men.
Yeah,
is
of
what it's
course.
like.
But like we're like you're not fighting real bokoblins. You're fighting
Yeah.
like
hologram.
holograms. Yes, thank you. That's the exact word I was looking for. Holograms. But once you've completed it, I remember this from the first time I played. So you finish level 12 and it's really difficult at that point. You're fighting like Lizalfos with bomb arrows and like you've got no armor. You're gonna get one hit killed. Like you don't have anything besides what you've been able to scrounge up like in the danger rooms. But when you've finished that, then Link he gets transported to like an antechamber, like in this like vast void, like underground bunker, whatever it is where we're physically going. Like, are we going to the Sacred Realm? Like, I really don't understand where Link's going in this. Like, is he in Hollow Earth? I think is one of the theories.
I think the simple answer is it's DLC content. No one really thought that hard about it.
But so then like Link ascends this like winding staircase in the middle of this void, and like it's like haunting. I'm getting like goosebumps thinking about it. I can't put to words exactly what it accomplishes, which I know is probably like not great for podcasting, but it almost makes the hassle worth it. Just like this magical moment where you feel like something important is actually happening. So, it's worth at least doing once. Maybe just that, 45 damage Master Sword might be worth it just for that one thing. And like, combat in the game is fun. It's problem solving. You're not able to just hack and slash. I know because like I've played through the first level of the Trial of the Sword so many times, just because if you die, you got to play that one over and over and over again. You can kill all the 3 bokoblins with just one bomb. Like you just run up to them, throw a bomb, they all die, and then like a portal opens to take you to level 2. Yeah, very simple stuff. But
actually, as I was demoing it earlier, I wanted to just reset myself out, so I just stood there and let the bokoblins attack me, and they set so many fires that they killed themselves with them. Like I wasn't touching the controller, and it sent me to the next level.
That's a bummer. That sucks. That sucks, Nintendo. Come on, man, do better.
Well, I also have a lot of hearts in this, So if I was a little less powered up, it wouldn't have happened.
I'm only. I guess we could probably leave it at that. The only other thing, I'm going to shout out one other shrine that I wrote sucks all day, which is the Miro Shaz. This is the golf one. This is the fucking shrine where you've got to hit the ball into the recessed hole at the other end of the shrine.
Are you talking about the one where you have to use stasis and wind? Okay, because there's 2 golf ones. There's one where you use magnesis.
No, it's
and you're
not the
doing like
magnesis
putt-putt,
one.
and that one's kind of fun. But the one you're talking about, fuck that forever.
This is so there's 2 different challenges in it, and like I don't know if we've talked about this too. In every shrine, no matter what shrine you go into, there's going to be a treasure chest hidden in there somewhere. So if you go into a shrine, you're not only getting a spirit orb, you're going to get some sort of treasure every time. It's always going to be hidden, or at least an extra challenge will be necessary. You just got to do one extra step.
Yeah.
And
another super frustrating thing about that for completionists is like if your inventory is full, then it doesn't count, I think, as getting the chest. If you just go, I don't want that item, and leave it.
Yeah. Oh, because then, right, doesn't like the color of the shrine on the map have some differentiation from the other completed ones? I feel like there's like an orange tint that it's like to be like you still got something to do there.
No, there's a little there's a treasure chest. There's a treasure chest icon next to I think next to the name.
Oh yeah.
That.
Oh my god, I never even noticed that.
I forget if that means you got it or didn't get the treasure though.
Well, it looks like.
I'm assuming it means you got it because I'm just panning around my map and most of them
interesting.
are checked off.
Another detail I didn't even know.
Oh, maybe it means there is still one. I don't know. Because I just not the biggest completionist in the world.
So like the layout of Miro Shaz, the first one's pretty straightforward, where you've got a ball, then there's a body of water in front of you that you can't access, but you stasis the ball, and then you strike the ball and make sure it's going to go straight ahead into the golf hole. The first one's not that difficult. It's a pretty straight roll that it's got a nice platform that makes it pretty easy as long as you're like in general area. then and then you could just go access the monk and get your orb and then call it a day. Unfortunately, that's not what I did. And I don't even remember what the prize was after I did it. But
me either.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being like over the top. I spent 45 minutes. I broke every weapon in my inventory several times, and I would have to restart.
Yeah, I did
weapons.
restart, I think, 1 or 2 times. I think this is the only playthrough I've ever gotten it. I think I gave up the other times I played through. I did 1 restart, and I think it took me about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, fancy boy.
Yeah.
Whatever. So what the game gives you, there's 2 sledgehammers that the shrine will
if not for
provide
that,
you.
God.
Well, but what I found, in the second hole, it's way more difficult to get it if you're trying to use the sledgehammer because the way stasis works, right? Like, the more force that you hit the object with, the more it'll accumulate until you get to the red. Like every time you hit an item, then an arrow will appear in front of it to signify where it's going to go and at what velocity. And you'll hit the red arrow, which means that it's at maximum velocity before it takes off pretty easily using the sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And you're going to go right past the hole, even if you've got a perfectly straight shot going toward it.
I think if you hit it, it'll ricochet off if you
exactly.
aim it right on because it has too much force.
So instead of doing that, I started just using the broadsword. You have way more control over the power. You can hit it more quickly. And so basically I wasted a lot of time and then found out that I could do it way more easily. And I'm sure some people did it on the first try just because there's certain finesse that's needed for it. And if you've got it, you got it. If you don't, then you're like me. And then you got to just really just ruin your life and then talk about it later. 45 minutes to finish this, and then the prize at the end was just oh, okay, damn.
That was 45 minutes of my life.
Although one tip I'll recommend if you're doing this and you're trying to really maximize how Link can efficiently hit the orb, take a speed plush potion, and then you've got that much more little just a little bit of wiggle room.
Because I would find okay, I've got to hit it 8 or 9 times.
Exactly.
And then it's how fast should I do it? And I'm trying to aim it at the same time. And so the speed plus would give you a little more,
a little
more time to think about your angles and stuff.
Yeah. And
hardest puzzle in gaming.
it was so far it was the least fun I've had playing Zelda.
Yeah.
Was that shrine. But I think it was my fault for just making it too hard for myself, too. But c'est la vie. So, okay, campers, we've got the Master Sword. We've defeated the 4 divine beasts. We are pretty sure Link is ready to fight Calamity Ganon at this point.
And if you're controlling him and you're not, I don't know how you made it this far.
I did the one fun thing where after I got the Master Sword, I went back to all the chieftains of the different tribes, and they're like, "You got your sword! Hey, buddy!" And it was just I was like, "Hey, cool! I just needed that validation. I needed Daruk's validation.
I just wanted to let you guys know I'm not a total fuck up, okay?"
I took your advice. I went to the forest. It was kind of spooky, but I got the sword. It's pretty good. Looks good on me. So next time we're going to go to Hyrule Castle.
Yeah, dog.
We're gonna, perhaps in your gaming, you went to Hyrule Castle very early in the game because, as some people know, it's a place where you can harvest really high level weapons.
Yeah,
and
it's extremely enticing.
It's wonderful, especially at a low level. If you've got no hearts, no stamina, and if you just fly into Hyrule Castle, it is on.
Yeah, it's if you hit that difficulty plateau out in the world, it's another way to give yourself a little boost of difficulty again.
Yeah. So
this game has definitely plateaus on difficulty.
Yeah,
very,
absolutely. Very
suddenly.
Where you can go from getting one hit killed to then you can just stand around and then your enemies will just kill themselves.
Right.
So, but yeah. So next episode we're gonna cover. It'll be a little less scattershot than this episode, where it was really just our boy needs some health. And yes, I know that you could just go to Hateno Village and talk to the corrupted statue and trade. If you're in my case, you could just trade your stamina for the hearts.
Yeah, which costs money.
It costs money, and I've got a lot of it after Death Mountain because of all the rare ore deposits that I found. A little update. Way back when we were talking about the camera function and how you can set items to go off on your like shrine like sensor that so it'll start beeping whenever you get close to whatever it is you took a photo of. I took a photo of a rare ore deposit.
They're actually labeled as like a rare deposit.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And yeah, you've got common ore deposits where you'd find like, amber or flint. And then you got rare ore deposits where you can find rubies, sapphires, topazes, or even diamonds if you're lucky. So I set the rare ore deposit to my Sheikah sensor, and boom, I'm rich now. I'm a rich man. I got no time for these peasants.
I pretty early on set mine to hardy durians.
Ooh, smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call. So our boy, he's about to. We've got some DLC that we're going to talk about next time. We've got some lost memories that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to talk about perhaps the final fight or what's leading up to the final fight. It really depends on how the flow goes and what we prioritize next. But we've only got a couple episodes left here, guys. Like Zelda has been at the center of everything in my life lately, and
it's been a pretty serious 6 months of you and I talking hardcore Zelda.
It's been pretty good.
Yeah,
it's like some of the happiest days of my life here.
Yeah. Before we wrap, I did go back and clarify Va Meadow's name origin.
Oh yes,
and I had the picture of the character in my head, but didn't know the name or the lore. It is Medley, the young Rito girl from Wind Waker, who I think is the first sage that you awaken or whatever in that game, is where Va Meadow comes from.
Thank you for clarifying that. Junior Counsel Josh. Campers, here at Camp Video Games, at the end of the day, we just want to talk about video games and video game adaptations and roast marshmallows and drink juice boxes and fall asleep under the stars. And we're going to do some of those things. Maybe not in that order, but you know what we're going to do it with? Smiles.
That's right. Pack your bags and put on a smile, because we're going to keep camping.
Here at Camp Video Game.
Sure.
If you'd like to write to us, send a message to campvideogames@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at campvideogames. If you want to become a real happy camper, you can support Camp Video Games on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll be granted access to even more discussions about movie-based video games, game-based movies, full-length commentaries, playthroughs, and more. Whether you sign up or not, we're glad to have you here at Camp Video Games.